My name's Tieneya, and I live in Spokane, Washington, and I was season 10 for Parent Ambassadors.
In talking with other people, what words would you use to describe the Parent Ambassador program?
Life-changing, for sure. Parent Ambassadors was actually where I got my start. They helped me find my voice when I thought I didn't have a story. It was definitely life-changing, not only for me, but for my kids. Because once Mom became empowered and found my voice, it gave a voice to my kids too. And being a mom of 6 and having some of my kids with learning disabilities, it definitely helped me navigate the school system with IEPs and be able to advocate for them, knowing that my voice had power and that it was important.
Is there a training or topic discussion that you remember as significant? If so, can you describe why it is significant?
So at our very first face-to-face, they asked us to write our story on paper, and I can remember sitting downstairs crying for 2 hours because it was overwhelming to me to try to write down my story, because it was hard enough just to tell, because I'd been in a DV marriage and I'd left, and I was a single mom and I have 6 kids, and it was just really struggling to know that my kids had suffered trauma, and when I wrote it down, it brought all that trauma back to life that I had tried to suppress. But at the same time, it was healing to write it, and so that was probably one of the biggest things for me.
What would you tell lawmakers about how families with young children, including your own family, have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, my family has struggled because I was working as a sub at the school, so when the school shut down, there went my source of income. My older kids suffered from depression, not being able to use sports as their outlet when we were put into total shutdown. That was my daughter's outlet. She was a junior when we got put into shutdown, and that really took a hit on her mentally, and trying to be a single mom and support her mental needs along with all the other kids living in my household. And my younger ones struggled, and they had IEPs for speech, and so they fell behind because they had that lapse in services and being able to pay my bills. And yeah, there was that grace period where they didn't make you pay, but eventually I'm gonna have to pay those bills. And I didn't qualify for unemployment. I haven't been able to collect unemployment at all. I'm still unemployed and trying to find a job when you have to be on call to go pick up your kids if they have the sniffles or if they cough, and trying to find a job that is supportive of that and not holding that against you is really hard. And not to mention childcare. I can't afford childcare, let alone if I could find a childcare, because Spokane is a childcare desert. And yeah, it's a struggle, for sure.
How would you create a child care subsidy program so it will actually help families who work and go to school? I
would definitely not make it a requirement for the parent to spend so many hours at school in order to receive that subsidy. When I was a student and I was a parent, I had to spend from 7:30 in the morning until 10:30 at night monitored study hours at the college in order to receive my TANF grant. I had 4 small kids at home at the time, and I'm going, wait a second, I have kids I have to take care of. Well, you either do this or you have to work and go to school in order to receive assistance. And I think that that is just outlandish that they would require that. Trying to better yourself so you can provide better for your kids to get off the system, and that I wasn't even home with them. My dad actually took an early retirement to help me with my kids because I couldn't afford childcare. And I would just make it more affordable and work for the parents. And I had a hard time finding a childcare that would take 4 of my kids when I could afford a little bit of a subsidy. And then with kids with special needs, it's even harder because they require a special one-on-one person to work with them. And childcares don't get paid enough to hire another person.
How long were you a parent ambassador, and what has changed in your life since then? Do you think parent ambassadors played a role in where you are now in life? If so, how?
So I was a parent ambassador for a year, and it definitely played a role at where I was at in my life now. Once I finished my parent ambassador, I became a WASA board member, and from that position I actually got a position on the Region 10 board, which is Washington, Idaho, Oregon, and Alaska. And then from there, I actually got a chance to run for a seat on the National Head Start Board of Directors. And so actually I held a seat on the National Head Start Board of Directors without a college degree. I just kind of threw my hat in the bucket and hoped for the best. And, you know, I'm like, I don't have any formal training, but I can bring a parent's voice and lived experience. And so I, you know, took that and I took that with great pride, and I represented not just my kids, but all the kids in my state, and brought, you know, a parent's voice to that board and said, hey, if we're working for the parents and the families, then don't you think we should get their input? And so that was something that I pride myself in, that I took advantage of that when the opportunity presented itself, and actually spoke in the Capitol on the importance of early learning and how it changed my kids' life because of those opportunities that I was given, and I took advantage of that.
What was most memorable for you in your year as a PA?
I think going to share my story to the local community. So I went to each Head Start site, did a presentation on how they could use their voice and tell their story. And I collected those stories and then I delivered them to our lawmakers when I went to Olympia, because that was a way to break that barrier down and allow those parents' voices to be heard and their stories to be told, since they couldn't go in there in person. And I went along with pictures because putting a face with the story actually makes a big difference.
What would you say to someone considering joining Parent Ambassadors?
I'd say do it. You wouldn't regret it. You learn so much and you become a family. Like, the people downstairs literally are my people. And going through COVID was really hard, but they still connected us all the time. They did check-ins with us. We have alumni calls, and they became my second family. When I needed support, when I needed resources, they were the ones I turned to. And it's life-changing, and it's not just for you, it's for your family, it's for your community. It gave me a whole new release on life. I was very much a recluse and had anxiety, to where I never left my house very often, to where I go out and I talk to other parents and tell them I used to be where you're at.
Cool. That's it. You did great.
I'm like trying to hold my emotions in.